Sir, you want to be in here or not? You don't have to be, but do you want to be in here with Mama? Hi. Good girl. My good girl. My good Brenda. I'm going to talk about a sea king. Well, he's the king of a kingdom that's underwater. He's kind of like, the knight of the sea, the god of the sea, however you want to put it. So that's who I'm going to talk about today. Do you want to be in the video? As more than just clicks on the floor. Okay. We'll leave that up to her to decide if she wishes to be in the video. So is that a yes or a no? You want to be up on the bed? There we go. Now we got a Brenda. We got a Brenda. We got a Brenda. We got a Brenda. She a good girl. Yes, she is. Yes, she is. I don't have a Triton as a prop. That would be a good prop to have, but I don't have one. I could go get like a 3-pronged fork from downstairs, but that just seems like an insult. Or at the very least, much more associated with a different member of the royal family. So, this is going to be the first one in my Ryugu Kingdom Royals, and the dog's gone again. In my Ryugu Kingdom Royals video series. So this first one will be about kind of the history of the Ryugu Kingdom leading up to present time, and then, or kind of present time, and then about King Neptune. And then the next one will be about Queen Otohime, and then the next one after that will be about the 3 Neptune brothers, so Fukaboshi, Ryuboshi, and Momboshi, all in one video, and then Shirahoshi will have her own separate video for that. So going into kind of the history / some other things that are associated with the Ryugu Kingdom, I looked it up. I could not find anything, I believe, that specifically stated when the Ryugu Kingdom was first founded, but it's been around for a very long time as far as we are aware. It's probably been around, I would say, definitely at least way before the Void Century, given the fact that they seem to be well established, and that the fishmen and merfolk would have needed a place where they could have lived, and that's where, the Ryugu Kingdom developed underneath the Red Line, or was possibly already there before the Red Line was built or constructed or created, depending on stuff, and built around it with, the Red Line way at the bottom and the Marige Wall way at the top, in that regard. So we'll probably find out about that. We know that they've been there for quite a while, that they grew up around, or that it is in that Fishman Island. Fishman Island itself is within the giant bubble, encased in the giant bubble, and that the light that goes to it is from the sunlight tree Eve. So we know about some of that. In regards to some things that are culturally relevant to the island, or to the Ryugu Kingdom, Fishman Island, and the Fishman District. Specifically, we have, of course, the Mermaid Princess, Poseidon. We know about this because Poseidon is an ancient weapon that is associated with the Void Century and with Joy Boy, along with Uranus and Pluton. The dog is back, and she has a rope. Do you have a rope? Her eye has rope. I know, and you're going to chew it. I'm sure you are, and I know you like chewing it. Which is perfectly fine. It's a quiet toy, so it can be in the background. I know I love you. She's like, I'm going to sit here until you throw it. Do you want me to throw? Want me to throw rope? There, I threw the rope. And she left. Okay. She'll be in and out, I'm sure. Where was I? Ancient Weapon Poseidon. So, and the Mermaid Princess. We know, according to Neptune, that the original Mermaid Princess who had the power of Poseidon, I don't know if it's supposed to be that her name was Poseidon, and that power just became associated with her because she had the ability to communicate with the Sea Kings, and they would... I don't think it's like they're forced to obey her, like, you know, like the Pied Piper luring the children and the rats out of town. I don't think it's like that. I think it's they have the, since she has the ability to communicate with them, they will listen to her. They choose to listen to her. At least the ones that are old enough and smart enough choose to listen to her, as we saw what happened with Shirahoshi, which I'll go over much more later on. And that the ancient weapon, that Poseidon themselves were somehow an ally of Joy Boy way back during the Void Century, and that Joy Boy unfortunately failed at the time to, you know, raise Fishman Island up to the surface, which leads me to believe that Fishman Island was already connected to the Great Kingdom, and maybe the Great Kingdom had tried to raise it to the surface before everything happened with the Void Century, and maybe that was like a catalyst for one of the things that happened in the Void Century, that enough kingdoms did not want these lower life forms, as they probably consider them, to be brought up to the surface and be made equal to them. It's a possibility. I mean, they already, clearly the original founding members of the world government had a fear of the Lunarians and the Buccaneers, as we've learned very recently with Kuma. So there's that whole connection there. So there might have been a fear of that, of having, oh, this other race, again, connected to, you know, Joy Boy and connected to the Void Century and everything like that. The Great Sin and everything like that. And I get the minks get thrown in there as well. Possibly also the snake neck and the long arm and the long leg and all of that other stuff, and the giants and everything. Probably get thrown in there as well. But one of the things that happened was that resulted in, you know, Joy Boy left the letter that is the poneglyph that is still down there, along with the red poneglyph, the road poneglyph that we don't know where it is yet. Shanks may have it, someone else may have it, we'll find out. That could be on Elbath. Shanks could just put it on Elbath and it's there now, and waiting for anyone that can show up and actually read the damn thing. And stuff. So there's a bunch of that stuff involved there, I'm sure. But Poseidon ended up, you know, Joy Boy wasn't able to fulfill his promise to the Mermaid Princess way back when, and now via the prophecies and stuff like that from Madame Charlie, we are aware of the fact that stuff is lining up where there is another current Mermaid Princess, Shirahoshi, who has the power of Poseidon, and will hopefully be able to help fulfill this prophecy. And with Luffy clearly being the reincarnation, well, not the full reincarnation of Joy Boy, but having the embodiment of like Nika and that being connected to Joy Boy, that will hopefully come to fruition because they already have a connection there. The other thing that is like culturally important and legend, you know, type associated stuff with the Ryugu Kingdom is the Tamatebako, or the Tomato Box, or Tamate Box, whatever you want to refer to it as. That treasure chest that had the energy steroids in it. And what had happened was, of course, we know that this is like a treasure that has belonged to the Ryugu Kingdom for a very, very, very long time. That Vanderdecken the Ninth had wanted to get his hands on it, along with Shirahoshi. He wanted her because she was connected to the Mermaid Princess and everything, and all of that. And then we know that Horty and his group, of course, had managed to get the hold of the energy steroids several years ago, steal what was in there, and then we know that the minister of the left or the minister of the right, one of the two, put a bomb inside of the Tamate Bako, and eventually that ended up blowing up at Big Mom's tea party and causing Whole Cake Chateau to fall down. So there's that whole thing there. And so that's just kind of out of play now. Poseidon and the Mermaid Princess with Shirahoshi is still very much in play, but that's kind of not in play anymore. A little bit more about the history of Fishman Island. As I said, the fishermen and the merfolk eventually just kind of, congregated down there and either built up Fishman Island in a version of like organically growing certain things, since parts of it are like giant coral and stuff like that they would have been able to carve, move in different things there. Given the fact that we know that before the Void Century there was huge amounts of much more technologically advanced stuff, they probably would have been able to build Fishman Island that way. And my actually kind of thought that I had was that, well, they built it up inside of this bubble, or they formed this giant bubble around it, and essentially what they technically could do is, yes, Noah might be a part of this with the ship, but they can essentially possibly find a way to just move the bubble out from underneath it and then raise it up to the surface. And when it gets up to the surface, it will pop, and then they will have all of this architecture and structure and everything already there that they can use to make a new version of Fishman Island. Possibly, but we know that the Noah is a big part of this as well. As I said, it was built around the roots of the sunlight tree Eve, and that's where they get their light from and everything like that. We know that during the Void Century, they seem to be on the side of Joy Boy, and that Joy Boy had made the promise to the Mermaid Princess that he would find a way to raise Fishman Island and bring it to the surface, and that the Noah, the great ship, the great Ark, of course going back to Noah's Ark, was a part of this promise. Unfortunately, we know that, as I mentioned earlier, and the dog is back. Hi! We know that, unfortunately, Joy Boy was unable to keep this promise, and he left the poneglyph, or had the poneglyph sent there with an apology letter to the princess, so that way she would know that he was sorry that he was unable to, keep his promise and everything like that. And that one day, hopefully, someone else would come along and be able to do so and finish up what Joy Boy had started. And if you go by the logic that Joy Boy was the king of the ancient kingdom, or the theory that we have that Joy Boy had been the king of the ancient kingdom and the great kingdom, and that he had, had all this technology at his disposal, that finding a way to raise Fishman Island probably wouldn't have been exceedingly hard, possibly time-consuming in its setup, but not necessarily a hard feat in the fact of like, well, we have this technology, so let's use it. It's like hard in the fact that it's time-consuming. So there's that kind of concept there, I guess. I highly doubt I'm the first person to think of that, but, there's that concept there. Unfortunately, as I said, he failed, so he left the poneglyph letter and everything in the sea forest, and he also left a road poneglyph there, or his descendants or his cohorts or whatever left the poneglyph there, depending on insert whichever theory you want to go with for how the poneglyphs got to different places, and all of that. And eventually, the royal family, which I've looked it up, I don't think there is an actual name for the royal family. It's just at the moment, it's just called the Ryugu Kingdom, but it's also like the Neptune family, just because Neptune is the current head of the family. We know that at one point in the past, the original Vanderdecken showed up with his ship, and they, eventually, tried to find his way into, became kind of an annoying scourge, an annoyance that the mermaid, that the previous mermaid princess had to deal with, but also that, that the kingdom would have had to deal with over time and everything like that. Eventually his descendant he was an annoyance. He's not really an annoyance anymore because he's locked up in jail. And he's an idiot. He did one smart move, and that was the marking Shirahoshi. That was his smart move. His dumb move after that was to continue to throw weapons at her. It's like, probably not the best courting ritual. If you tried to woo her with like cards and letters and flowers and stuff like that, once she was a better age, that may have been a bit more appropriate, but not what he was doing. And everything like that. So, we know about that. And then 200 years ago, I had to specifically look this up because I wanted to make sure I had this correct. 2 years ago, the Ryugu Kingdom joined the world government, became officially recognized members of the world government, and its king was granted a place at the Reverie. This also coincides when I believe they made it that it wasn't outlawed for them to hunt fishmen, because that still kept going, but it kind of gave them more of an equal status, where the world government was technically officially more recognizing them as equal members of the world government. So we get that there. And so that has continued, but there haven't really been any kings up until Neptune very recently at the last Reverie, as far as we're aware, that actually went to Reverie. After that, because of its location at the bottom of the red line, and because of the ability to coat ships at Sabaody and send them down, and then, coat them again and then send them back up if necessary, that was how a lot of pirates went through, while the world government had access to, like, the Bondola system and everything like that in regards to, the red line and all of that. And a bunch of those things. So we know about that, and because of that, that meant Fishman Island, and we saw this with Vanderdecken and everything like that, the original and stuff, and still the current one, along with other pirates that would come and cause problems in Fishman Island. I highly doubt that Whitebeard was the first pirate to actually put, like, a protection on the Ryugu kingdom. He was just probably, beyond Big Mom and Luffy technically currently, the most recent, and probably the one that held that status for a good chunk of time. As a way of protecting Fishman Island during, once the Great Age of Piracy got started with Roger and everything like that. With him proclaiming about the One Piece and everything. So there probably were other pirates, and of course we know that the Ryugu Kingdom have, like, the Ammo Knights, because Jinbei is a former Ammo Knight, as was Hody, were other members and stuff like that. Other people, other fishermen have been various levels of Ammo Knights and stuff like that, and other royal guards and stuff like that to help, protect the kingdom. Neptune himself, as I will get to, was a very strong fighter and everything like that, and to a degree can still hold his own. He's just like 70-something years old and has back problems. Oh God, my back! Oh no! So we have that. We know there's more current stuff deals with Queen Otohime, which I'll go over a bit more now. Stuff with Fisher Tiger, stuff with much more current stuff what happened at Fishman Island within the Fishman Island arc and everything like that, which I will go over a bit here with him and with Neptune, and then consequently more detailed for certain things about, the other characters as I get into their discussion videos for the Ryugu Kingdom. We know that it is definitely a monarchy in the fact that they have, a king. Hi, are you upside down? Are you upside down? Are you an upside down baby? Yeah, upside down baby girl. Now you're not. Now you're not upside down. She's like, I know I'm not, but now you're going to pet me. Because you bothered me while I was upside down, so you will pet me now. Is that the rule? If I bother you, I have to pet you? She's like, if I bother you, you have to pet me. So yes, that is how it works. Where was I with that? So assumedly, Neptune can probably draw, to a degree, a somewhat straight line back to, like, the mermaid princess of old that was the original Poseidon and everything like that. Now, whether or not her power of communicating with sea kings was something she was born with, and then it's just kind of been passed down through the lines over the years to certain other princesses being born that have this ability, just currently Shirahoshi is the current host of the power, is one question. But the other question would be, was she just given that power, or was she born with it and it just passed down type of that question? That may not be answered until we get the Void Century flashback, or more information possibly from Vegapunk in that regard. But by technicality, I guess the next one in line would be Fukaboshi, because he is the eldest of the Neptune brothers, and such. So we have that. Going into, as I said, the current monarch of Fishman Island, we have King Neptune. And I had to look this up because I'm going to look up what each of the different, fishes that they are associated with as them being mermen. He is a Coelacanth, probably butchered that type of fishman. I believe this is a fish that is native to Indonesia, and they are fairly good-sized fish. and stuff. The picture is from, I believe it's from a stamp or a postcard or something like that of the fish. It looks much more interesting when it's in water as opposed to when it's like taxidermied, because I found several pictures of it taxidermied and it didn't look particularly interesting. But he is that type of a fish, that type of a merman. He is the patriarch of the Neptune family, father of Fukaboshi, Ryuboshi, Momboshi, and Shirahoshi, and husband of the late Queen Otohime. And he is currently 70 years old. I did not look up how old Otohime was at time of her death, but I do believe that she is a bit younger than him in that regard. I don't know how much younger. I'll be double checking that when I get to the Otohime video, which will be the next one. But because he was already king before they got married, and that was like 27, 28 years ago or something like that when we first meet him in the flashback with Neptune, with Roger and with Roger and Odin and everything, which I'll get to. And all of that. So going into that, his early life, he was a soldier and everything. So he, did go up through the ranks, probably very similar to probably how previous kings had done, where they go through the training of being members of the military, which a lot of kings and princes and stuff like that have gone through that. If you look at the UK, King Charles now, but also William and Harry have gone through that. Even Princess Anne, who's King Charles's younger sister, she went through and she has a military rank. I don't remember what it is, but she has a military rank. And it is very common for members of the royal family, not just of British royal families, but of other royal families, to go through and actually have like military service, where they go through and have the military training, go to military school, and actually full on go through the service and everything. And be able to prove their capabilities. Late Queen Elizabeth did this. She served during World War II. Not on the front lines, but she did serve and she did, learn a whole bunch of stuff and everything like that. Look that up if you're interested in it, but it's not uncommon for this to be done inside of royal families. Eventually, he unfortunately, one of the things that happens to Neptune is that he ends up he avenged the lives of his fellow comrades and prisoners who were in the process in his early years when he was a soldier. They were taken prisoner by humans, and he ended up fighting against the humans and saving them. At some point, he does become a close friend of Whitebeard, who then eventually ends up, being a protector of Fishman Island later on. When they were both in their prime, they made this friendship. And then he also developed a friendship with Roger as well in the Roger Pirates. He also was the one who showed Roger and Odin and such the poneglyphs that were in the Sea Forest. The red one, that was the road poneglyph, and then the letter. And then that's when Odin revealed to him what the letter said. I'm pretty sure they were at least somewhat told what was in the letter, so they understood why they were being given this poneglyph. But I don't think that Neptune knew what the red poneglyph was. I don't think he knew it was a road poneglyph or a load poneglyph, or however you want to put it. So we have that. And at that same time frame, we have it that when little Charlie is like giving her prophecies about Roger and everything, and there'll be a princess born in so many years, and when she comes of age, blah 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 blah, and he's just like, I can't have how could I have a daughter? I'm not even married yet. And then they mention Otohime. And he's like, oh, and he kind of blushes and everything like that. So that kind of sets that up there. And then going into more of the time frame about, I think it was like 16 years ago, because Shirahoshi is 16 years old. So this sort of about 15, 16 years ago when this part is happening. Eventually he does marry Otohime, and then they have their three sons, Fukaboshi, Ryuboshi, and Momboshi, with Fukaboshi being the oldest, but I don't remember how old he is. I think he's like 20s or something. because they're not triplets. I know that, but I don't remember exactly how old they are. And they have the 3 princes, and then they end up having Shirahoshi. And then during that same time frame is when things start happening with Fisher Tiger. And when everything happens with Fisher Tiger, when Fisher Tiger shows back up in the Fishman District, he then goes to the Royal Palace, and he goes and he talks to Neptune and Otohime. And they are the only 2 who he tells about what happened to him, why he was gone for so long. I believe they are the only 2 that he tells up until his death about the fact that he had been a slave to the world nobles, to what had happened, talked about his time as a slave, and told them, he straight up told them he was planning on like climbing the Red Line and attacking Marie-Joie and freeing as many slaves as he could, which he succeeded in. And we've seen, the results of that with Koala and with Hancock and her sisters and with so many other ones that we've seen that were freed because of him. And such. And he told them that he was going to do this. And I'll mention this a bit more when I talk about Otohime for like the comparisons between Otohime and Fisher Tiger. And I know that a lot of people had made the comparison that Otohime seems to be much more of in comparison to like Martin Luther King Jr. in regards to like civil rights stuff in America in the 60s, that she is similar to Martin Luther King Jr. and that Fisher Tiger is more similar to Malcolm X, who's from Nebraska. I believe he's from Omaha. But that there is this comparison that can be made between the 2 of them and those counterparts, real life counterparts. Not that there aren't other counterparts in other cultures and societies that they can't be drawn to, but those are the main ones that Americans tend to associate them with is, Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. And one of the things that happens is, of course, Otohime and Neptune, they can't outright say that they support him because he is technically going to be attacking, the world nobles and everything, and they can't outright, show their support for him, but they're not going to stop him from it, because as much as Otohime doesn't agree with what he's going to do, she doesn't think that he should be stopped either, because she is aware to a degree of everything that has happened, and that, finding out from Fisher Tiger's firsthand view as to what happened. They have a very interesting relationship, and the thing is that both Otohime and Fisher Tiger very much respect each other and respect each other's points of view in regards to their experiences. And Neptune is there as well, and he is very much, accepting of like what Fisher Tiger is going to go and do. Again, he's like, we can't outright show our support, but know that you kind of have it. And so he goes and he rampages through Marie-Joie and everything. And, during this whole time frame is, of course, when Otohime is preaching and, doing her speeches and everything like that, doing her speeches about, how that they should find a way to, go and live on the surface and go, that they should be able to live in the sun just as the humans do and everything like that, because they are, they are equal to humans. And of course, eventually everything happens with Fisher Tiger's death and everything like that. And that does affect Neptune, and how Neptune, and how Jinbei explained to Neptune why he was taking the post as a warlord of the sea. So that way, fishmen, the fishermen slaves would be released from Marie-Joie and everything like that. And, Neptune is supportive of his wife. And we even see this with even the ministers of the left and the right and everything like that. And even when, Otohime gets drunk and is, yelling over the loudspeaker over all of Fishman Island at the, at the rest of Fishman Island about all of that, of just all of you, just how much he's yelling into the microphone at that point in time. And while all of this is happening, Jinbei and Neptune have a very good relationship with each other. They have a lot of respect for each other. Jinbei, of course, has a huge amount of respect for Otohime and everything. And, when, Milzigard shows up and everything and ends up, taking Otohime up to the surface, Neptune is supportive of this. And all of that. And we see how much he just adores his children and his wife and everything. We get glimpses of him during this, during like the flashback, but it is much more focused on Otohime and Fisher Tiger when we get that flashback, but he is still there and very present in what is going on. And when Otohime returns, he is supportive in all of them trying to get the signatures and everything like that, so that way they have the support of the people to go up to, to go to the surface and everything like that. So we see that. And then everything happens with Hodi's plan, where he shoots Otohime and burns all the signatures and everything. And this is just, I don't remember if Neptune is there when this happens. I know the three princes and Shirahoshi are, but I do not remember if Neptune is when that happens in like the town square, in the town center or whatever, when Otohime dies. But we see how much anguish this puts Neptune through when we cut back to the palace and we just see that, his crown is like laying on the ground, just like forgotten. And he's got, blood coming down from his forehead where he's probably been bashing his head on the wall or on the ground or whatever, just in anguish. And he's just crying and so upset and everything he lost the love of his life. And he adored her. And, and we see just how heartbroken, and she's gone again. We see just how heartbroken that makes him. And then after that, we have it where everything happens with, where the princes and Shirahoshi do the speech at Otohime's funeral. And they're like, we are not going to stop just because of this. We will keep going. We are going to keep fighting for what our mother wanted. We are going to keep her dream alive. And even if it takes another 10 years or whatever to get those signatures, we will do that. And all of that. We also have this moment where I believe it is Neptune speaking with one of the ministers, the minister of the left or whichever one it is. And he's like, as a king, he wants to honor his wife's ambition and to make peace with the humans, because at this point in time he thinks, they are led to believe that a human is the one that assassinated Otohime, where they're later told that it is Hodi, where that's revealed. But he's like, but as a husband, he wants to tear apart the person who killed his wife. And I don't think any person would blame him in that regard. I don't think anyone would blame him for wanting to do that. And again, this shows this dichotomy between, like, if he was just some random citizen, he could go and try and just get his revenge, or if he was a pirate, he could go and try to get his revenge. But he's not. He's a king, and he has to think about the safety of his citizens and of his children and of his kingdom. And to a degree, that means putting those people that, his people's safety ahead of what he wants to go and do, of wanting to go and, kill the person who killed his wife and took away the love of his life. But he can't do it. And as much as he wants to, he can't, because that's falling prey to, the darkness and everything like that Otohime was trying to preach against, or that she was, speaking against and everything. And of course, during all of this time frame is when, Vanderdecken marks, Vanderdecken the Ninth, marks Shirahoshi, and then he starts throwing, letters at her, and then eventually marriage proposals, and then eventually weapons at her, and that's why they have to, lock Shirahoshi up in the hard shell tower for the next, however many years that happens. And, and it's not locking her up there because, she can't go outside because, she'll go to the surface and fall in love with a human. It's literally for her own safety. So there's that. And of course, and it's not like Neptune and her brothers ignore her. They still go and see her like every day and spend time with her and everything like that. and all of that. So she's not, she is kind of alone, but she's not isolated. She gets visitors and everything like that. And she still is aware of stuff that's going on in the kingdom, and she's still supportive of what her mother wanted to do with her, with her mother's ambitions and everything like that. And then eventually we do get to where everything happens with the time skip. By technicality, I would assume that they may not have watched what happened at Marineford, but they were definitely aware as to what happened, because we know that when Whitebeard was on his way back through from the New World to the Paradise side to go to Marineford to try to save Ace, we know that they stopped at Fishman Island and got coding, so that way they could then go up and attack Marineford that way from underneath. So they probably stopped there, and Whitebeard probably told Neptune what he was doing, although I doubt they needed an explanation for that. And with Whitebeard dying, that meant that now the Ryugu Kingdom had to make the deal with Big Mom, and that's why, of course, Jinbei made the deal with Big Mom to have, to join her ranks and everything like that, with the marriage of Aladdin and Praline and everything like that, for that, that connection there. But then we also have it that gave Fishman Island the protection from Big Mom, and that was under her protection for the next 2 years. After that, when we get to after the time skip, when the Straw Hats have arrived in Fishman Island, he shows up. Neptune shows up where the Straw Hats are, and he is there to invite them to come to the Ryugu Palace, because he is aware that they are friends of Jinbei and everything like that, and that they help save Megalo, who is Shirahoshi's pet shark, which is adorable, that they help save him from the Kraken. They also just help save the Kraken in general, in regards to that with Tsurume. So we have that, and so he invites them back to the palace and everything like that. And it's Nami, Brooke, Usopp, Zoro up there as well. Those ones, but I don't remember who else exactly is there. That ends up going to the palace, but like part of the Straw Hats go to the palace and everything like that, and they're just talking with Neptune, and then eventually it's like, oh, and Luffy goes with them, and then Luffy kind of kidnaps Shiro. She shoves her inside the shark and gets her out of there, which is just hilarious. But like things seem to be going okay at first, and then just all hell breaks loose, and then of course the palace gets attacked by Horty and his group and everything. One of the things that happens, though, is like Nami asked Neptune a question about Fishman Island being, how is it underwater so far, but it still has, sunlight and everything, and that's why he explains about like, oh, the sunlight tree and everything like that. He says Neptune explained to Nami that Fishman Island came to be when fishmen began living on the seafloor where there was light. So it's like they congregated around where the sunlight tree Eve was. So that kind of implies that was there. The sunlight tree itself was there long before the Void Century, and possibly if the Red Line was, created somehow, part of it, setting it up the way it is, was shifted. We know it was there at one point in time before that, because that's where the Lunarians lived on top of the Red Line, where Marie Joie is. But the Red Line itself probably didn't stretch all the way around the world naturally. Its first incarnation, it may have been forced and shifted before then, since then. But they, that's where Fishman Island was built up and everything. So, he's talking with them, and then eventually it ends up being, that's when, Horty and his group attack and everything. And then, of course, there's other stuff where, like, Nami and the others have to deal with, they kind of get attacked by the guards because they think that they're helping Luffy kidnap the princess and everything like that. And they have to deal with the Minister of the Left and the Minister of the Right and all this other stuff. And they have to deal with the princes and, Zoro kind of technically fights against Neptune because Neptune does try to attack them. And then, of course, They learn about Charlie's prophecy about, Luffy destroying Fishman Island and everything like that. And so we get a lot of that, which, by the way, the Neptune kind of listening to like what Charlie says with like advice with her prophecies and stuff like that is not uncommon. A lot of kings and rulers and stuff like that throughout history have had different, like, wise women and wise men and shamans and stuff like that, who it was their job to like keep, have, if they had a premonition or had a vision of what would come to the future, what would come of the future of like a harm that could come upon the king or of the royal family, and and like bring that to the king so they could try to stop it from happening. That was very common before witch hunts started happening and everything like that, with the Salem witch trials and other witch trials in other parts of the world and everything. That was very common for tribes and kingdoms to have wise men and women and soothsayers and visions and stuff like that to keep those people around, as a way of like trying to predict what would happen in the future so they could try to stop bad things from befalling the kingdoms and stuff like that. So that's an understandable thing that they would have there, that why they would listen to Madame Charlie. And I love the fact that it is kind of the Straw Hats, Zoro, Nami, Usopp, and Brook are kind of somewhat easily able to, well, Zoro's there, so they're kind of able to like defeat Neptune, and pin him and all of his guards down and like kind of chain them up, and then eventually they have to release them. We also have the moment where I think he's like pleading for his daughter's life because he realizes that she's in danger, and he makes the comment of like, no, you have to protect my daughter and blah 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 blah. I'll give you whatever you want. And it's just like, we don't want anything. You're the ones that attacked us after you invited us here for food. And everything like that. But like, I think the joke happens because like he claims that his daughter takes after him, and they're just like, we don't want your hairy daughter, which is like a reference because like Roger much earlier on, before Neptune even married Otohime, was just like, yeah, no, I'm not going to come back here and kidnap your hairy daughter. So they think that like Shirahoshi is like kind of, big and hairy like him, but she's not. She's, gorgeous and beautiful and amazing and sweet and adorable. I love Shirahoshi. She's so cute. And everything. But eventually stuff gets sorted out where they realize, okay, Luffy didn't kidnap Shirahoshi. He took her to see her mother's grave. Okay, we're going to release the king and the guards and all of that stuff. And then we have to deal with Horty and his crew and his people and everything like that and his stuff. So a bunch of that stuff happens, and Neptune is like fighting alongside them to try to stop them. And eventually it is that Neptune, along with the princes, are captured by, well, first it's Neptune along with some of the other Straw Hats. It's Zoro, Usopp, and Brook that get captured because Nami, I believe, manages to escape with Kami, and then Papagu has to help Brook and Zoro and Usopp. So we have that, and all of this stuff is happening, and we have other stuff that ends up happening, but Neptune finds out that the fishmen, the new fishmen pirates, Horty's crew, have been eating the energy steroids and everything like that and gaining power and everything. And eventually we do have the moment where Neptune and his sons are all captured, and they are put up in, like the town square type setup of Fishman Island, the big arena area that they have, and have them all set up there on display for execution. Because, of course, Horty's sick plan is, of course, to go through and find the names of everybody who signed the petitions that were in favor of trying to raise Fishman Island, and then take them and then go after them. And, of course, this is, of course, when he's having people demonstrate their loyalty by having them step on, Otohime's picture, even though they don't want to, and everything like that. And so we get a lot of that shown there. And, eventually this, of course, results when, the Straw Hats, along with Shirahoshi and Jinbei, who's not a Straw Hat yet, technically, show up. And, they end up fighting against, all of the different fishmen pirates and everything like that. And, Luffy's fighting against Horty, and everything happens with, like, him and Shirahoshi working together. And all of that stuff to, stop the Noah and to stop, Hody and Vanderdecken and everything like that. And, everything's revealed where it's like Hody reveals that he's the one that actually killed Otohime and that he's glad that he did it because he's gloating about it and everything, to Shirahoshi's face. And then, of course, this is one of the moments where, like, her powers activate. And, of course, Neptune sees this, and this fully confirms that she is the one that has the power of Poseidon and everything. And, so we get to see a lot of that, and, all of this stuff is happening. And, Neptune kind of is, like, he tries to fight back, but he unfortunately is, kind of hurt. And it's like, oh, my back, type of a thing. Play off on the whole, him being one of the old guys that can't really fight anymore. Even though we've had so many other old guys, Garp, Rayleigh, Crocus, Hirogoro, that are still very much able to fight, even though they're, older than him. Older than Neptune, in some cases. And so we have a bunch of that stuff. Lao Ji, another example of that, but he has like the, oh, my back issues that happen every now and then. So we kind of get that funny bits there. And eventually everything, they're able to defeat Hody and everything, and the princes and the king are all freed and everything. And eventually we have it where Neptune is talking with Robin. And he initially thinks that she's flirting with him because she's asking him something, and he goes like, "Oh, I've sworn never to date again because I cannot do that to my wife. I loved my late wife so much that I could not bring myself to do that." And Robin is just kind of like very blatantly like, "That's okay. I wasn't going to ask you out anyway," type of thing. But we have like that cute interaction between the two of them, which is somewhat then reminisced about when you get to because like one of the most recent episodes is where you have Robin in Wano kind of confronting / talking with Sukeyaki, and him revealing who he is, and then her just blatantly going, where is Pluton, and everything like that. It's here, isn't it? And he's like, yeah, how do you know that? So it's like, it's kind of like a reference to that conversation there where she's talking with Neptune, and Neptune is, telling her the little bit that he knows about Joy Boy and everything. And this is where we as an audience are, told about Joy Boy because Robin explains what she read on the poneglyph and everything. So we get some of that in there. And in all honesty, Robin could have just blatantly asked him here about the road poneglyphs, but at that point in time, she didn't know about the road poneglyphs, and neither did we, I believe. I don't think we knew about the road poneglyphs at that point in time yet, or maybe we did, but we didn't know what they represented. We may have just known, oh, they had a red one at one point in time. That's weird. Since I don't know if we'd seen that yet. Because Robin doesn't learn about them like the Straw Hats. They don't learn about them until they get to Zoe. But then it's like, oh, well, the other one was in Fishman Island. Okay, well, now we got to figure out where the heck it was. Type of a thing. Now we got to find it. Now we got to figure out who has that one. So they have that conversation, and he explains that, yes, his daughter is the power of Poseidon reincarnated. And all of that. And Robin explains it, it's like, I know that Poseidon was down here because that was written on the poneglyph that was at Skypiea. And so she's kind of, talking with him about that and a little bit about Joy Boy and everything. And, so that's where we get some of that information told to us as an audience, as it's told to Robin and everything, as she asks those questions. And then, unfortunately, during all that time frame is, of course, when, the Straw Hats are having the big party at the mansion, at the castle, which is just a really big fun party, and partying with the princes and Shirahoshi and Neptune and all of that stuff, and then just having a whole bunch of fun, and then having to deal with Caribou and all of that crap. And eventually, he talks to Jinbei about the status of the Sun Pirates and all of that stuff, and they have to deal with, when Pecoms and Baron Tamago show up to get the candy tax, and Luffy's ate the candy, so he gives them all the treasure, including the Tamatebako, which then blows up later on at the tea party, and everything like that as like compensation, and a whole bunch of other stuff happens there and everything. And Neptune and the whichever minister it is like, we put a bomb in that box, didn't we? Yes, we should take it back from the Straw Hats. A little bit too late. They gave it to Big Mom. Oh, well, that's not good. So we have a bunch of that stuff that's happening there. And, so a bunch of stuff happens there. And of course, Neptune and the princes are there along with Shirahoshi to send the Straw Hats off when they leave Fishman Island. And after that, we get a little bit of like updates because like I think we see in some of the cover pages some of the stuff that's going on there, but not too much. And then eventually we get to where the reverie is about to begin, where everybody's leaving from their respective kingdoms to head to the reverie. Shirahoshi and Neptune and such are all leaving, Fishman Island to head up to the reverie, and like Garp is their escort and everything. And eventually, once we get to the reverie arc, we have it, that they read about Luffy's exploits in Totland and everything, and that we see Neptune interacting with Garp, but also Neptune interacting with Stelly, because when Stelly falls down at one point, he reaches down to try to help pick Stelly up, and Stelly just freaks out and insults him and everything, and all of that stuff, which is understandable for Stelly. So, and we see them traveling up, up the gondola, in the gondolas, up the Red Line, up to Marie Joie for the reverie, because for the first time they've decided to actually attend reverie, to speak with them about actually moving Fishman Island. So we have that going on. And eventually, we see the way, and I'll go over this more with Shirahoshi, but like even Neptune is very much impressed, like with them looking out over the world and everything. And then of course everything happens with Charlos, where, while, a bunch of the different royals are just congregating and talking and everything like that. And I think like Neptune watches as like some of the stuff happens with, Shirahoshi meeting Vivi and Rebecca and all of that stuff, and like those little groups all interacting with each other. But of course he is there when Charlos shows up and tries to, take Shirahoshi by force to turn her into a slave. And when Vivi is, showing up and trying to help and everything like that. And after what happens, we have him interacting with Milzigard. We have Neptune interacting with Milzigard. And, he had, Neptune had thanked Vivi for trying to stand up to Charlos for trying to protect, Shirahoshi and everything. And then he's talking to Milzigard, and Milzigard is explaining to him, because of everything that happened with your wife, I have realized that I am going to use my status here as a celestial dragon as a way to try to help you. And I will stay by Shirahoshi's side, and I will stay by your side, and I will protect you while all of this is going on, while you are here at Reverie, so that way you are safe. And so we get to see that in that interaction there and everything to keep, to keep Shirahoshi safe. And we get the whole moment where he whacks Charlos, which is just so funny. And during all of that was happening, Neptune was about to attack Charlos himself, and nobody would have blamed him. Well, I mean, nobody in our world in their right mind would have blamed him for that, and even other people within the One Piece world wouldn't have blamed him. But he was like, he was like, Neptune was like this close to like, I don't care if it's going to ruin what's going on here at Reverie. I am not going to let this little twerp of a man, this horrible little turd of a human, do this to my daughter. And he was ready to stand up, but of course, Milzigard showed up and took care of all of that. And then, of course, after all of that is happening, then they go to the Reverie meeting, and of course, Neptune is there, and he listens to what Cobra and what Riku, what they say about, the warlords and everything like that. And probably votes with them to, abandon the warlord system, even though he has a connection to Jinbei, who is a former warlord. But now the Straw Hats are kind of the ones that are, protecting Fishman Island at this point in time. Also, he has a more personal connection with them, as, now that, at that point in time, with everything happening with the Reverie, Luffy is kind of, the fifth Yonko, as they refer to him. That he has this, very high status there. Although, as a side note, I am quite certain that if Big Mom hadn't jumped in and, like, taken over Fishman Island as, like, part of her territory, Shanks probably would have offered to protect Fishman Island, but Big Mom probably just kind of beat him to it. So there's probably that. But I think Shanks probably would have offered protection to Fishman Island had that become a necessity. Because Shanks, of course, respected Whitebeard, and Shanks is aware of Neptune, and that Neptune had this friendship with Roger and everything. So I'm sure that Shanks probably, just as a side note, I think that would have been something Shanks would have done. And then, of course, when everything happens with Cobra and the Gorosei and everything like that, Neptune is kind of worried that Cobra is not there when everything is happening during, the ending of Reverie. And then, of course, once they are all back down at Fishman Island, Neptune and Shirahoshi are having this, nice little family dinner, and, Garp is there talking with them, or family tea time, whatever it is. And Garp is there, and they're all talking about what happened at Reverie. And that's kind of the most recent thing we've gotten. I'm assuming that once, everything is finished with Egghead Island and we get either another big, like, cut around the world thing where we see, reactions to what happened at Egghead Island with, the Ryugu Kingdom, with, like, Neptune and Shirahoshi seeing what happens, and maybe something starts, developing there with, like, being able to, okay, well, we may have to mobilize soon and we may go and help Luffy or something like that. I don't expect anyone from Fishman Island to show up at Egghead Island, but that would be very interesting. If that happened, that would be interesting. Beyond, like, Shirahoshi showing up with her father, like, having the Sea Kings, like, under her control and being like, destroy all of the Navy battleships, except that one. It's cute. Don't hurt it. But destroy all the other ones. And then that one. I don't know. Like, just her telling all of the Sea Kings to go and attack all of the Navy ships and all of that stuff. Like, but I don't see that happening. As to something that might happen in the future, I can see definitely that, like, Neptune and Shirahoshi and the princes may show up when whatever type of final battle happens, and, either it's Shirahoshi got captured and they want Luffy's help to save her, which of course he would, but also, a bunch of other stuff happening in that regard where, like, Neptune is an ally of the Straw Hats, and Fishman Island is Luffy's territory at this point in time. I'm just about finished. Hi, baby girl. And, Fishman Island is part of Luffy's territory at this point in time, so it would make sense for Neptune and his crew or his Ammo Knights and everything like that, along with the princes and stuff, to show up and help Luffy if that became a necessity. Were that to become an issue, particularly if it comes with, like, having to deal with, like, the world government or something like that. I have a feeling we're going to end up having another instance where, like, maybe Luffy fights alongside the Neptune brothers, or, has Shirahoshi there and, works with, the Sea Kings and stuff like that to, like, try to do all of that and everything with the Noah and all of that stuff. So that part of the prophecy, that promise can be fulfilled and everything. So I think that's going to end up getting developed, and at some point in time that, Oda will circle back to that stuff and it'll get, fully taken care of and resolved in that regard. And, things like that. So, I don't know exactly the next time we'll see them, but probably when we get another catch-up of Around the World, either in, like, the actual chapters or in the cover pages, possibly, plus some other stuff, or other reactions to things. We'll see what happens there. But that's what I have. I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. And Brenda, you want to come up? Brenda, up, 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 up. Good girl. Look at the camera. Look over here. Brenda, look over here. This way. This way. Look over here. Look up here at the camera. She's like, no, I will look at you. I love you. I love you. Bye.